And our speaker at 7 o'clock is Mark Krupski to kind of speak about election law. We all know that Dennis Hansen died unexpectedly and leaving a remaining candidate, and now we've had a write-in candidate file, and he's going to kind of explain what happened and why there wasn't a special elections filing and things like that. We have Mark Krupski. He's the Director of Property Records and Licensing. He's been with the county for 22 years and a director for a little over 6 years. And I'm going to let him explain to you how the elections folks, how that ties in. And here's Mark.
Thank you, Terry. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mark Krupski. As Terry mentioned, I'm the Director of Olmsted County Property Records and Licensing. And it's a pleasure to be here tonight to address this group and perhaps give a little more information on election law, especially how it relates to the Rochester City Council President position. A little background, property records and licensing is a combination of your former row offices of auditor, treasurer, assessor, and recorder. And one of the duties of the auditor is the elections. So that's how I came to be involved in the elections. And this year, as you probably recall, has been a big year because it's been a redistricting year. And whenever there's a redistricting year, there are also certain laws apply of when you can have special elections and things like that. So that's kind of some of the background of what occurred. When Dennis Hansen passed away, it was too late in the filing period to actually do anything, to get anything done in time for the primary, because by state law, we had to have 45 days to get all the programming done for the auto marks, which is, comes from federal law for the Help Americans to Vote Act and to help folks with disabilities. So also that 45 days pertains to getting our ballots overseas to our service personnel and those persons, U.S. citizens that live abroad. So we didn't have a time to do anything. It was too late to do anything for the primary. So a little more background. In 2010, in Washington County, there was a judge had filed for election, and also that judge's law clerk filed. And then the judge withdrew. And there wasn't really a lot of time for anybody else to file because it was in the withdrawal period, and so folks cried foul. And I don't know if there was any merit to that or not, but the law clerk, who was the only other person on the ballot, said, well, if you feel that way, I'm not going to run. So now they both withdrew. So then that opened it up they had to open up the filing. And this is a nonpartisan office, and from what I understand, I didn't see the ballots myself, but what I've been told from the Secretary of State's office, there was something like, maybe up to 20 candidates on the ballot for judge up in Washington County. And the purpose of the primary is to limit this so, you get rid of some confusion, hopefully, and you narrow the field down, and that's why we have primaries. Well, they couldn't do that. So, in the best interests, with good intentions and everything, the Secretary of State's office did some cleanup legislation in 2011 that would prevent that from happening again, okay? And that's for nonpartisan offices. So if this was a partisan race, for the setting, for the City Council President, then we could have opened this up, possibly, But anyways, it's not a partisan race, so that precluded us from doing so. And that law was only passed in 2011. So rest assured, the legislature is going to revisit this because I think they felt there was some unintended consequences. There was no time to do anything by state law prior to the primary, and we cannot run a special election between when the primary starts and the general election. So the city could have done a special election. I think they amended something at a city council meeting to clarify that, but they could have done something after the election, but it really would have been kind of a moot point to run something, if we did an election after the election. Very confusing for the people, for somebody to serve possibly 1 month. So, that makes no sense to do. So we're left in this situation with 2 names on the ballot, the original two people that filed, which is Mr. Tronson and Mr. Hansen's name. That's what's on the ballot right now. And of course, we can have write-in campaign also, and I believe there's one that I'm aware of that's, has a campaign for write-in. So that's what it kind of leaves us in this, kind of situation. So, depending on what happens on election day will determine on, where things go next, depending on which of the candidates, whether living or deceased, prevails in the election, and then steps will be taken after that. And I certainly would entertain any questions, if there are any. Yes, sir. I think I'd like you to come up to the
question, and that is, had it been the reverse, not to say I'm wishing that would have happened, but had it been reversed.
Excuse me, because of the
Yeah, can you
taping,
come up
we
to the
need to come to the
microphone,
mic so it'll be on the tape, because this will be taped. Thank you.
Well, my question is had it been Bronson that had become deceased, not that I wished it, had that happened to him, do you think we would have still had the same uproar over circumstances?
That I really can't comment on, because that really doesn't come into what I oversee on handling the election, so I really don't have an answer for that. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You had mentioned 2011, the Secretary of State took some action. Was it?
Well, the Secretary of State's
cleaned
office
up the
proposed
situation.
legislation, or brought forth a cleanup bill so that they could prevent a general election where you only have 20 candidates on the ballot for one position. And the unintended consequence on that, in this case, was we weren't able to, because of the deceased person, open up the filing again.
Okay, so
See, if you
was
recall,
that proposed legislation in direct response to the previous story that you were talking about of the judge's race
Yes.
in 2011?
That's what I've been told,
It was
yes.
precipitated by that?
Yes.
And then, so what was it? It was proposed by the Secretary of State and passed by the state legislature?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay, and what exactly is the specific restriction on that?
I don't have the bill in front of me, but if you'd like to stop by my office, I'd be happy to get that information for you. Or if you write down your name or an email address.
But you were saying it was about the timing of the primary? Is that what you were saying? That the Secretary of State's proposed legislation was about inability to hold a special election, or about the timing of the primary?
The legislation, it's really not the Secretary of State's legislation, it's the state of Minnesota's legislation. They recommended it so that we could avoid a situation where you had where you really null and void the primary purpose. The purpose for a primary is to narrow the field of candidates. Okay, you with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. That did not happen in that instance. And the purpose of that legislation was to prevent confusion for the voters, to have multiple names, up to 20 names, let's say, on a ballot, which is cumbersome also for the election officials because of the size of the ballots. Next thing you know, you might have to be doing 2-page ballots, okay? So they wanted to avoid that situation in the future. So that was with the best intentions to clean up that situation, okay?
So it
prevented
from entering onto the ballot.
in this instance here, that legislation did not allow us to open the filing for somebody that's deceased. Now, in 2002, we lost Senator Wellstone, okay? But that was a partisan race. And they were able to submit other names. It was too late to print ballots, so we had to do hand counts and pass out paper ballots in that case that were hand counted. But had this been a partisan race and Mr. Hansen passed away, we would have been able to open up the refiling.
And what's different about a partisan race from a nonpartisan race? Of
One is partisan and one isn't, and that's what the law states, and that's what they decided.
of allowing new people on the ballot or
Well, you
Does-
think about it,
does
in a
being-
partisan race, your local offices are not partisan. In the city of Rochester,
Sure.
at the Olmsted County, okay? But when you get into state offices and federal offices, they're partisan offices, okay? So when you get in that situation, let's say we're down to, 3 parties, let's say, and one party loses a candidate. Well, the other members of that party feel pretty disenfranchised if they're not able to have somebody from their party run, okay? Say somebody was to be deceased, such as what happened with Senator Wellstone, okay? So they were able to open that up, to have the party send something. But in the nonpartisan race, such as we have here, the law just states that we can't do that. It doesn't allow for us to do that.
Okay, 2 more short questions. One, there's nothing preventing governor or senator or any of those statewide offices being held by a nonpartisan. Could somebody nonpartisan win that election?
It would probably be called an independent.
But
Yeah.
without belonging to a political party, they could run and win that election?
Yes.
Okay. And then last question, you said because of this situation or others, they proposed some cleanup. Do we have any idea what kind of cleanup do the?
I'm not sure what they're gonna do, but I have a feeling something will
Fix
happen.
this
I
situation?
don't pass legislation. My job is,
But you mentioned that.
no,
they were
I'm aware,
discussing-
but I'm trying to explain to you. Your legislature, it'd be up to them if they think this is something that needs to be brought forward, so that in the case of the future, God forbid, somebody here in a nonpartisan office throughout the state of Minnesota, let's say we have an unexpected passing after the filing, and we can't, it'll be up to them if they think that should be corrected or amended or changed somehow.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
okay. Any other questions? Yes?
Hey, Mark. If the Hanson campaign wins the election, I was told that the soonest that we could have a special election would be late March or early April. Do you know anything, can you elaborate or know anything more about that?
I'm not exactly sure on the dates, but it most likely wouldn't happen right away. So we'd be working with the city to set that timeline. So
Having the last name of Wilson, which is fairly common, how do you differentiate between write-in candidates that would have like a common last name?
well, that's an interesting question, and I guess unless it's contested by somebody with the same name, first and last name, we're going to assume it was a candidate that was doing the advertising and spending the money on the billboards and things of that nature. But if somebody else with that same name came forward, I guess we may have an interesting situation, and I don't know the answer to that. That sounds like we're going to get into some legalities that I would refer to our county attorney, and I would also refer to the attorneys at the Secretary of State's office. So I don't have a definitive answer for you on that. He's got some good questions tonight. Yes, sir, come on up. Oh.
Could you explain the cost of a special election and what the voter turnout is for a special election and average in Madison County?
I don't have any statistics on averages. This would be a city election, so it would be, I want to say, about 50 precincts. We have 86 in the county, so it'd be less than what we have. But there would be still some costs. We'd have to set up all the voting machines. We'd have to do some programming. We'd have to do programming for the auto marks and things of that nature. The exact cost, I don't know. We have some estimates. I would throw something out there. I was told that it should be somewhere in the vicinity of $50,000-$60,000 if we end up with a special election. I'm not sure if they'll have a primary on that or not. It'll depend if we have more than 2 file. So, so we'll see what happens on that. Yes, sir.
Isn't it a requirement that the candidate has to live in their district? That's the first part of the question. The second part, being that Mr. Hanson was deceased, and people that aren't aware of that and vote for him, would they not be disenfranchised later? And what's the state going to do about that?
The first question is, yes, they do need to live in the jurisdiction that they're running for. And the second one, I'm sure the state's feels some empathy for the city of Rochester that, you know, that with the passing of this person, as we all do. But the law is the law, and you know, that's the way that's
But
going
he's
to
not
go down.
living, so he's not living. See, so why would he be on the ballot?
Because the law does not allow us to take his name off the ballot.
Okay, but isn't that unconstitutional? He's not living.
No, it's not unconstitutional.
Okay, but then what about the voters that aren't aware that he's deceased to vote for him? What happens to their vote? Because then they become disenfranchised.
I'm not sure they'll be disenfranchised. I think it was fairly well covered in the papers, but you might be correct in that some people may not be aware that Dennis Henderson's passed away. However, there are other people that are well aware, and that also, I know I've seen signs in town that say they're still like promoting his, you know, candidacy.
Well, yeah.
So those folks are still, you know, gonna, I'm assuming they may cast in that direction.
Well, all the signs that I've seen, none of them indicate that he's deceased, and wouldn't that also be a legal issue? Because you're promoting somebody that's dead.
To my knowledge, no. But again, I'm not an attorney,
Okay.
so if you know, feel strongly about that, you certainly could check with an attorney on that to research that matter.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Does Rochester carry insurance for situations like this to cover the cost of the special election?
I'm not, I don't believe so, but I don't really know the answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
And I had heard at a township meeting or something that there was a possibility that when you hold the special election, in the case that Mr. Hanson winning, that there was a chance or that we might be a good possibility for ranked voting or ranked choice or something, which I'm not sure what that is.
Yes, ranked voting. I am by no means an expert on this. I know the city of Minneapolis has done this. And it's kind of a, from what I understand about it, it is an interesting almost phenomenon where, you know, you do your ranking of like 1, 2, 3, or whatever the situation is. And this would replace a primary, so depending on how big the field of candidates are. And then if your first one doesn't go, then it goes to your second one, and then you could end up with a final result of that's, you know, somebody wins almost like by default, the way I understand it, you know, because it's the second most popular person. In other words, you don't have any clear winner on the first one, but your number 2 was everybody's number 2, you know, and so that's, it is different, and the city has not taken this on, and, you know, so, and it's not something that we're administering right now, so, but I don't know if that'd be something that will be explored in the future or not. Okay, well, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity.